And so you two are going to be a part of the S&A meeting, or the S&A.
Oscar's going through the process. Eric's still going through the process. So he's sort of here as a non-voting, non-official member, but I didn't want to waste any time, like since we're starting this quarter. And so hopefully that will become a bit more official. And yeah, we do want to we have Nick and, oh, you here
Is not able to make it
this quarter.
this quarter. Yes.
Not like I'd be able to vote on this one anyway.
Well, I'd like to welcome you guys for this.
And what's your name?
My name is Eli.
Eli.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
I'm glad you guys are here. We need more people. So, yeah, I also invited a couple people from my club, and I maybe won't come, maybe will not, but I'm also recruiting too, so
Great.
hopefully we get people.
Andre did recruit someone possibly from SLA, so I'm in contact with them, so they may also be joining us in our next.
And this is Genevieve. She works in our office and she's gonna be helping support the budgeting stuff for the S&A funded areas. And so she's gonna be joining us to just kind of get a better feel for what all the areas do, and she'll be with the, at least the quarter.
Thank you for being here.
And this is my supervisor in case you ever need to escalate anything. Then this is Pat Stanton, and he's our executive director of finance. He'll be presenting today, but he's also a good financial resource if you all need.
Aaron's great.
And former Aaron is great, and former member of this committee. I think I've spent 12 years on that committee in the last. But I'm not now, and I don't vote, and
Yeah, Pat, especially all of those years, I think it was when the meetings were in the evening after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But. Like during the end.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start now at 2:01. I'd like to welcome all of you, a lot of new faces, and I appreciate you guys being here to grow the committee as well. We have a couple presentations today, and then we have some old business things to talk about. So, yeah, I call this meeting to order at 2:02 p.m. Okay, I'll just do a quick roll call. Actually, that's good job. Sorry.
Hi, I'm good. Know you guys. Aaron introduced you. Aaron introduced you too. Okay. Oh, and I know Vera. Hi, Vera. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go forward with the agenda approval. I'll give you a couple minutes to look over it. It should be in your emails,
It's on the screen.
and it's on the screen as well. So please take a few moments to look that over, any changes that need to be made or additions or anything. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, seeing that there's a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the meeting agenda for today is approved. Next, we'll go forward with the approval of the meeting minutes today. Please take a look at those. Those are also in your emails and on the screen. Okay, that's probably long, but that's okay. I'll give you a couple minutes to look that over. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 6th.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Seeing if there's a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. The meeting minutes are. Next, move to reports. I do not have any reports.
For myself, I would just report, that as I kind of mentioned, we assembled the books for the, base funding. And as far as, amounts, our projections are still showing that there will be about $6 million to allocate annually. And we'll keep that updated. We had a total requested amount of about 6.45. So a little bit more than what we have available, but there hasn't been any indication that our what we sort of anticipated is.
Robbie, do you have any reports?
I have nothing to add to Aaron's report.
CWU?
Quite a few reports. If you guys are interested, just a list of events that ACW is doing. One of those is the committees. If anybody from S&A would want to go, it's gonna be a lot like the last event. Mostly this type of community, so community members, chairs, whatever, bring students in and have a conversation with students. It'll be soup based, so it'll be like miso soup. Yeah, and that'll be January 22nd. And then secondly, we also have a lot of them coming up in February. So we'll be on. If you guys are interested in, I can give you more details. I think that's about it.
What time is the student council meeting?
Nice to.
Okay. Next one. Yeah, it'll be in the certificate. Next, we'll move into communications received.
We did receive communication from Yahir, one of our S&A members, that he will be unable to attend S&A this quarter due to an internship opportunity. So he's still here in our hearts, but not physically here or able to vote.
Will he be coming to meetings?
He won't be able to come this quarter
Oh,
because of the internship.
oh,
So he's not off the S&A, he's just taking a break for the quarter.
next we'll move into public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
I would like to publicly wish everyone a happy new year and welcome back for winter quarter. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can accomplish this quarter.
I'd also like to say, I appreciate the binders. This is going to be very helpful, so thank you for putting this together for us, and I'm really excited to see what we do this quarter. Okay, next we'll move into new business. We have our first presentation from CERT Accounting / Student Funds Financial Manager.
Great. Okay. So we're all kind of new in this process, and this is, I believe, except for Pat and Vero over there, I believe this is the first time all of us have gone through this. And so this is going to be kind of more, aside from the presentation for these two areas, also an opportunity for us to train. Typically the way that this is set up is that we have a up to 10 minutes presentation. The presenters don't have to take that time, but they do have 10 minutes. And then for you all to ask questions for 10 minutes after that. If down the road, if there's other questions like during deliberation that come up, we can always reach out to those areas and ask, you know, for additional information. And I would encourage you to take notes. There's a few blank pages at the end of your binders. There's also, you know, areas in there you can write on everything that's in your book. Please don't take your books home, because this is going to be part of the public record. So we'll have to retain all of your notes and everything. But if you have questions, like as the presenters are going, then maybe jot those questions down so you can ask them at the end. And before I get started, do you guys, I'll put my committee advisor hat back on. Do you guys have any questions before our presenter gets going?
Erin, oh, Erin,
Yes.
can I mention?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, would you go over the deliberation rubric as kind of the tool we've decided to use for the committee to kind of consider as they're hearing the presentation within the Killian guidelines of how S&A funds are to be spent?
So at the back of each section, sort of before the green sheets, you all should find a deliberation rubric. So each section of the book starts off with the base funding request, which is what they submitted online. And then any additional documentations that were submitted. The next page is going to be the budget. And we gave the opportunity to put a budget for 4 years. But that's not required because the base funding is really a flat rate. The next one will be an org chart if there is one. Then the program review. So this is sort of talking about the current year. The next section will be their annual financial report. And so here you'll be able to see any financial information as well as sort of how they spent their money. So and we can go through this with mine to kind of like walk through all the pieces. Then finally will be the base funding request deliberation rubric. And this is really kind of to help guide your questions, but also to make sure that we're considering all of the things that are relevant to the Killian outline. So, if they have been base funded, is the first question. The second one is, do they have additional funding outside of S&A? So let's pick on circuit counting. Is funded through S&A, but they're also supported by the rec fee and the sub fee. So there's a lot of areas that are only partially funded by S&A. Does it fit within the S&A funding priorities? And that is the number one priority for the S&A fee, of course, is the bond payment. Sort of like any of us, my number one is paying my mortgage or my rent. And how it's aligned with the purpose of S&A funding. The next page goes into, is the funding seeking an increase from previous funding? So kind of, as you know, we have less money. As I'm sure you've all heard me say it a million times, we have less money than we did the previous cycle. So at the 4 years ago, we had about 7.5 million to to allocate out to the areas. That was before COVID. Then, of course, enrollment tanked, which is, we all know. And we have about 1.5 million less. And we've been ratcheting that down year to year. So where we're at kind of is 6 million. And then talking about the impact to students. And then trying to assess the amount compared to the impact to students. So if you're, I'll just be very, very exaggerating. If I was asking for $2 million for 5 students, probably not as good as, $5 for 200 students. And then your overall recommendation. This part I would encourage you to wait on, because keeping in mind, we're not really making decisions today. Today and for the rest of the quarter, we're really listening to the requests, sort of trying to assess how they fit within S&A. And then as far as how we're gonna fund them, we'll wait until the end. There will probably be a day or 2 or 5 days where we're all locked in here together. We'll have to and decide how those are gonna be funded. With the exception of, I would encourage you to, with the exception of the bond payment, that is a contractual obligation that we have to pay for the building. Did you have anything else, Robbie?
No, that was perfect.
Okay. So I'm gonna take my binder over here. I guess, does it matter? Maybe I'll just go. No, I have mine. Okay. Can I sit on this chair? Yeah. We probably have to. I don't think we can discount this. Yeah, 4. Right? Because out of 3 or out of 5. Robbie, we have quorum, right? 3 voting members out of 5.
Yes, I
Mhm.
believe that's all we needed.
Yeah. You freaked
I'll look it up too.
Yeah,
So the presentation for base funding has 10 minutes, right?
that's correct.
What should I kind of have a process in mind for if people go over, but is that necessary? Like, do people go over?
So, I have no idea. I have no idea if they go over. I think that if that was the case, maybe, maybe that's a good question. I certainly won't, because I'm gonna get out of here as fast. But I think that maybe we should, think about that. Like, yeah. Yeah.
What I observed in the past, that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. But if they got to the 10 minutes, they'd say, time's up. But then the committee can vote to give them additional.
Giving them warnings about their.
Yeah, and yeah,
When I did public speaking, they would give the timekeeper hand signals. So like hand signal at 7.5 minutes, another one at 10. And if we go.
Wait, did you do that as well? Yes, I was gonna say something like that. So usually when people are getting close to their allotted time, we do like one tap at 1 minute left, and then once they're over time, they gavel down. But it's just like they just get like,
yeah.
no, we're not like you're out of order. No, just like, but I'll see. I don't know. I don't even know if that's even necessary, but yeah, this is our.
I think it's a good idea, and really, I mean, at the very least, it's a very good thought that we need to make sure that we have some kind of timer that when they all start, I know that I would probably have not even paid attention if somebody was up here, presenting, and so we probably really do want to make sure that that is set. Pat and I are presenting today, but going forward, it will be, a variety of different areas. So I will make sure that we have a good plan for that, and we could probably even get some type of a timer so that the person presenting can see. And then I guess in the event that they do go over, then we should probably maybe decide how that's gonna be, if there is gonna be an opportunity to vote to extend the time. Or that they just are gavelled down. I like that. I'm gonna use that at home on my daughter. I'm like, I'm gaveling you down, Melissa. Okay, that's a great point. I'll make sure that we have something for the meeting to keep track of that. Okay, anything else? All right, so I am presenting two budgets at the same time. They're kind of combined. I hope that you all have joined us in the circuit counting office at some point. I know Eli was there today. We have two workstations when you come in that are typically staffed with our students, and that's where all of the club transactions happen. So we have the circuit counting office and then the student funds financial manager. And historically, these have been presented together, even though they are two separately funded areas. So to kind of go into a little information about the circuit counting program, the office provides budget and accounting services to all student clubs and organizations. And so if you are a member of a club, even if you don't pay dues and you've not been into our office, then all of the financial aspects of that club is managed right downstairs. We process funding reimbursements for the S&A supplemental requests, which you all are familiar with. So when you all vote to approve one of those requests, then the accounting piece that occurs to make that happen happens in that office. We also provide funding solutions to areas that have limited resources or access to traditional funding support. So what that means is that if there's a group or individual that doesn't have like a CWU budget, but they said, you know, they have the funds to be able to pay for that, we can accept a deposit. We can help facilitate that purchase. We also help with fiscal related matters and offer guidance for all the S&A funded areas. So everybody in that book, as well as the student union and rec center department. So daily rec center activity happens downstairs. They bring their paperwork to us and we process that so that it becomes part of the accounting system. And as well as the scheduling center. And then we provide hands-on experience to our student staff related to banking, customer service, cash handling, written and verbal, professional communication, general office communication, and teamwork. So currently we have 7 students that work in our office, and they're given that opportunity. You know, cash is kind of on its way out, I suppose. And so it's a good opportunity, kind of a unique skill set now to be able to work with that. So the total request for circuit counting is actually down $56,000 from the last 4-year cycle. It's a total of 34.99%. And that incorporates a reduction from the student funds financial manager budget that didn't have as much ability to take a reduction. This budget funds the, well, it partially funds because we do get multiple funding sources. We have rec money and student union fee money that comes to support these efforts for rec and student union. So it's the salaries and benefits for 2 full-time fiscal positions. We have up to 7 students right now. It really depends on schedules. You know, we could have 80 students for 1 hour a week, you know, it is so that number of students kind of varies just based on how many hours they're available. We try to employ as many as possible to get that experience and to make sure that, you know, the clubs have what they need. And then we have a little bit of money for goods and services, office supplies, printer costs, mailing, not as much mailing, but sometimes, and binder creation. So if these were being presented separately, then this would be the start of the 10 minutes. So I guess I'll just pause for a moment and see if we want to do a Q&A for the circuit counting budget. If there's any questions yet. Okay. The next budget is the Student Funds Financial Manager budget. The Student Funds Financial Manager has the responsibility to provide timely and accurate fiscal information relative to the S&A fee, as well as student union and rec center fee. And so part of that is sending budget reports to everybody that is currently funded, helping to make sure that those areas understand how they can use the funds, making sure that we're not doing anything unallowable with those, providing some guidance. The position also provides advice on financial matters in relation to S&A. The members of the committee, it serves as an advisor to the committee and provides information and works closely with the vice president of student engagement and success and other administrators and program managers. So this position is really kind of a liaison between the committee and all of the areas that it supports. And those areas primarily are budget development, forecasting, application of budget policy. So that's really, did you overspend, or, are you staying within the rules of the road, appropriate use of funds, budget reconciliation training, and managing the circuit accounting office, which is why they're kind of combined in a way. The requested allocation for this budget is $120,406, which is what was allocated in full last time, given that 20%, hope we're trying to, reduce. So the reduction that did not happen in this budget was taken by the other one. And primarily because there's not enough programming here to reduce the 20%. So the budget covers the costs and salary and benefits for the Student Funds Financial Manager, and then a little bit of goods and services to support the committee. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, number one, those ones, I'm like, what would happen if you just didn't have that? And we'll have to-
Sure. I mean, I've been thinking about it all day. So without this position, then one of the primary functions, of course, is helping get the committee, but also providing those accounting and budget support areas. Each area on campus sort of has a budget buddy. And that is a very important role to make sure that the university's finances are, keeping, being monitored. Without the position, then the university would have to still provide that position, which would be a cost to S&A. So it's kind of, I mean, it would be more of like a zero benefit, because if you defunded the position, let's say this role, then it would be probably an increase in the admin fee, because that administrative cost would need to be still, or the administrative functions would still need to be performed. And as far as the circuit accounting office, that supports the clubs. And so without that, then you wouldn't really be able to do transactions or process those clubs. And right now, Genevieve, how many active clubs do we have? About a couple hundred? Yeah. And not all of them are constantly active, doing things every day, but there's a large amount of clubs that are being supported, and that number changes all the time, because you may have a year where nobody's interested in and the club is inactive, and so that's another part of it, is maintaining active clubs. So it's really a support position for the S&A fee. But that's a great question. So over here, I'm like, oh my gosh, but It's a great question to ask because it is important to understand not only what these areas are doing, but what would happen without those areas. So I appreciate the question, even though I'm. Oh, you're very welcome. And so as we kind of look through this book, like as we're kind of working through that, the first page, of course, is kind of the request, but then for you all, when you're looking at the this budget, so let's kind of go back here. So on this one, we're requesting 104,401. That should match what they have in their budget. And here, so for, I'm going to get my glasses here. So the S&A allocation is the first line, the 104,000, and then it shows other funds received. So these other funds received are student union. This would be on the Circuit County one. So we're talking like the second page of your book. Okay, so those other funds received, that's the from the student union building and the rec fee. And then you've got your student payroll lines. So that's all the employees that work in the office. And then the non-student payroll. And those are gonna be your permanent staff. Just kind of, and this should be pretty consistent through all the areas because we had them fill out the same thing. So it's just kind of how we're gonna read these budget reports. And then a little bit of goods and services. Then the next page kind of supports what was in here for your non-student payroll. So this non-student payroll of 112,000, these are the positions that it's supporting. And at the time I filled this out, we had 6 students. So that's how fast some of these things can change. The next page, and I'd encourage, we have this on Teams too. Even if this was not a base funding year, then the committee would still review this program review. And this is really going to be to make sure going forward that the way that they're using the funds is what it was intended to be for. And that's really important. You have so many people who change positions. So what what you all may award for an area to use the money for, by year 4, I mean, it could have evolved into something that, so this is an important part in any year to just kind of make sure that the spirit of what the funding was awarded for is still what they're using it for. And then the last one is the annual financial report. And it kind of talks about empty positions. That's important because as a committee, you all have at one point decided that if there's a position that's empty or vacant for 1 month, then we're going to pull that funding back. So let's say if I had an empty position in the office for 6 months, then that money that was allocated out for that position would be brought back. And essentially part of, if we weren't trying to make a budget deficit, that would essentially be part of the supplemental funding amount that you would have for the next year. And then the last one, I'm going to pull this out and kind of talk about it. This is the Circuit County budget for the last 3 years. It's not 4 years because we're still in the 4th year. But this kind of just shows some of the health of that fund. In the current year or in last year, we rolled back $17,000. That's what this transfer is. So that was money that was allocated that the department didn't spend, and that rolled back into, remember when I gave you your supplemental budget number? This amount was part of that. So what they don't spend, then you guys can reallocate the following year. And that's how we end up at 0. I'm going to tell you, some of your budgets are gonna end up in a negative. And that's something that, you know, happens when you spend more than you have. I would encourage you all, we'll get this out on Teams this week or by next week, having each of these. And I'll encourage you guys to go and kind of take a look at the schedule and then poke around in those documents so that you are familiar with them. We'll have all quarter to still, you know, review and everything. But some of these reports are gonna help guide your questions that you might have. And you can come to the meetings with questions already. You know, as you're thinking about like, well, how did Aaron spend all this money? I mean, you should ask that because although you are not necessarily a deciding body, you're a recommending body. So your recommendations, same with the supplemental, they get moved up to the CFO. And depending on the amount, potentially up to the, you'll see them at the Board of Trustees. But with the allocations that we're doing, these are going to be also recommendations. And so it's very important to have the student voice in this. This is one of the, I mean, Pat kind of talks about too, this is probably the most important, one of the most important committees on campus because you all are really speaking for every student. Okay. Next, technically the next presentation is the bond payment. I don't want to say you have no choice. We all have choices. The question is, do you want a place to live? Well, that's the mortgage example. When I think, do I want to pay my mortgage payment? I do. So I'm gonna go in here. Also, for you guys, I made the I thought of Pat's favorite color is orange, so this folder is the orange one. And I just kind of plopped these in here for now. I didn't make a PowerPoint for the bond payment because I just couldn't think of anything more boring to do. But I'll kind of just go through. Did I grab the wrong one? Okay, so the intent of the bond payment, I'm gonna move on to, is that okay? Are we good? Okay. The intent of the funding for the bond payment is to help support the costs for the CERT prior to the construction of the student, the student government and the committee pledged and committed $850,000 annually for a 30-year period of time. This was intended to ensure the financial success of this project, and we needed to demonstrate to the Board of Trustees that we could operate the CERT and pay the yearly bond until we retired in 2034. And again, this is a contractual obligation. This is not really, if ask your question again that you asked me.
What happens if we don't fund?
That's a great question. So on this one, there would be probably, it would probably end up going to arbitration because as a recommending body, then you would recommend to the Board of Trustees that we defund the bond payment. And they would say, think that one through again. It would come back down to be reconsidered. And if you were like, no, we absolutely do not want to pay the bond payment. The dispute resolution process is to go to an arbitrator, and then they would make that decision. And you know, I have no crystal ball or time machine, and if I did, I wouldn't use it to find out what that would be. But my guess is that it would end up being that we would pay the bond payment. And just kind of, so you know, we have, that has not changed. The amount has been the same. So it is flat from last year or last 20 years. Does anybody have a question about the bond payment?
Is there like an interest rate or something?
There is an interest rate.
Like,
go, Pat, can I call on you to help with the bond payment?
So. The annual payment for the whole bond, which we sold one bond. One series of bonds in 2004 to construct this building. That, portion that's the rec center, the portion that's the union, the bookstore and dining. And it was $60 million. The interest rate at that time, I think, was 3.5%, which was pretty good, but we're a pretty good credit risk for the state of Washington, right? So we refinanced in. The first opportunity we had was in 2014, and all the payments went down slightly and the interest rate went down slightly. But this, I think what your question is, will that 850 go up or down? No, because the annual payments are the same for the next 10 years. And so, much like a car payment, right? Each time we make a payment, we're paying a little less interest and a little more principal. So.
And this is only a portion of the bond payment, because as Pat had mentioned, there are partners operating within the building. So the student union building fee, which you all are hopefully checking your tuition schedules and you know what fees you're paying. But a portion of that student union building fee also goes to paying the bond payment. A portion of the rec fee goes to paying the bond payment, dining, and the bookstore. All of the, those are the CERC partners, the 4, plus S&A contributes as well. So it's a portion of that. That's a great question. I hope you asked that often. Any other questions about bond payment? Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
That make it my turn?
Yeah, that's your
Okay.
turn, Pat.
Well, this is what everyone really cares to see. Let's see if I have. Don't start my 10 minutes yet.
Yeah.
So this is the administrative fee. I'll go into what that is a little bit. That means that can't be CPA. I know I don't look like a CPA, but it's salary. And Friday, January 10th. So to give a little bit of background on what the admin fee is and why, well, it's very common. All the other Washington State schools have something like this. I wanted to step back a little bit. This is the entire university. All the money that comes in and all the different categories. You rarely see anything like this put out there, but I think it's a healthy way to look at it. For the state general fund, that's a little bit of a jargon thing. The state of Washington gives us an operating appropriation. It's going to be $70 million this year. And then we charge tuition, and that's where you hear, what portion of your education are you paying, what portion's the state. We hook those together, and that we use to provide a classroom, clean and well lit with an instructor and equipment that works. We recruit students, we enroll them, financial aid, and that's all that portion's supposed to do. The local general is like if you went to summer school, paid summer tuition, or if there's a lab fee, room and board, we bring in $50 million, right? And we can't just take the $50 million and pay for an instructor. We actually have to do what we said we were doing with the money. And over here you got S&A, and this one's a bigger number than what Aaron's talking about. This would have the rec center in it and a few other things. So what the basic thing about an admin fee and what it means is administrative overhead fee. So we have from the state money coming in, and we size, say the payroll department, the HR department, IT, big enough to do that. Well, over here in housing and dining, they don't really want to have their own payroll department or their own IT. So we need one that's a little bit bigger. And so the housing and dining and bookstore, they all pay an administrative fee. And the idea is that it's a payment for those basic services. And S&A for the last 10 or 11 years has been paying into this too. So you guys have already been through all the trainings about what the RCWs and the Killian outline, right? And I think it's super cool. The RCWs, the revised code of Washington, that is the state constitution, and every law that the legislature has passed since then. Your committee is in the state constitution. Kind of brings a little chill to me. But it talks about what the fee's for, and it's expressly for funding student activities. It also can be pledged for the payment of bonds, because otherwise, where would you do the activities, right? So where this thing came from, the legislature passed this in the late 50s. And they wrote a lot of things out saying, you know, optimally, it's something kind of like an ASB fund in high school, right? Except that everybody is a member of the ASB and everyone's paying it. It would really be crummy if you paid into your ASB fund in high school and they took some of the money and paid the principal as wages, right? So they put all these guardrails in and said, you can do all this stuff and you might need a building to do it in. That's where you started getting union buildings across Washington State. And then this is the part about you guys are supposed to propose, and then the university administration and governing board actually they have the obligation to choose, right? They have to look out for the bigger university. It's pretty rare that there's any kind of disagreement between this committee and the board, although I have a couple I can show you here. And that's kind of how S&A works. And I put all this in here without knowing that you guys have already been through all the training. There's Killian outline, permissible use. Now here's something weird. In 2013, the S&A committee was on the front page of the Seattle Times. Isn't that weird? So what had happened, and I don't recommend that we ever have this kind of public publicity for the university ever again. That's when they put in this admin fee and they tried to say, well, we're just going to take a certain percentage of all the revenue and we're going to pay for a certain percentage of all the costs, which would kind of imply that you were paying a tiny little portion of the president's salary and of landscaping. And I'll send this thing to you. It says that they violated so there was an audit and the auditor said, you know, we were charging for groundskeeping to S&A, and that's not right. So we had a long drawn out conversation with the Assistant Attorney General and the state auditors, and we came up and said, you're right. Based on the RCWs and the Killian outline, we can't pay for general stuff for the whole university. Here are the things that we can delineate and say, we know that the S&A fund and the funded areas are getting some benefit from the university. And they came up with these things, and I realized this is too small to read. But for accounts payable, it said, accounts payable processes all the travel and vouchers and invoices and distributes payments for stuff that the S&A funded areas buys. And we can go count what portion of all the university transactions actually had something to do with S&A, and it's 5%. 30 minutes? I'm almost done. And so we went through and did all these for payroll and purchasing. The last cycle, wish I could make this thing go away.
There it goes.
I think this should be the number in your book, 454, 745. Hopefully.
It's,
Or is this the one after the 10?
that's before the, yeah.
So when we add all these things up and we say S&A is getting the benefit of 5.6% of the payroll office and 6% of purchasing. According to the somewhat agreed upon ratios, we'd be asking S&A for $591,000, but we know that times are tight everywhere. And in fact, times are tight in the administrative portion here. And we're attempting to become more efficient and scale all these departments back anyway. So ultimately, what we're going to ask for is the same as last time. So there's my summary. It's very common in higher ed. Eastern has one, Western, UW, Wazoo, tied to the specific services that we provide, reviewed by the auditor, recalculated on a cycle, and we're asking for the same amount. Am I at 10?
Can I,
Well, no, we're not to questions yet.
no, I know. I was
I'm
gonna,
just kidding. I think that was the end of my thing, so
Oh.
I'm okay. I'm okay. Okay. Now we have 10 minutes for questions. Let me sit down.
Stop the clock for just a moment while we're kind of. I just want to add a point of clarification because I just told you all that your amounts should match and now they don't. And so I just want to point out why. The original request last year was our last cycle was the 454,000. And as you recall, we've been ratcheting that allocation down. And so where we're currently at is 405,000, and that is with the reduction.
Oh,
Yeah, and so my understanding when you did your request was that was the 10% reduction.
don't know, it's whatever we.
Yeah, 405,000, 405, 540 is what the current, which is less than what there was last time. But that's because of the 10% reduction.
Yeah, and it's, you know, we don't really want any increase to the things crowded out valuable services to the students that. I don't know if I'm gonna make 10 minutes.
Okay, let's start your 10 minutes now.
No, I had 1 minute left.
Okay, go.
If we tried to increase this, it's gonna crowd out services to students. We need students to attend Central, and it seems like they would be more likely to attend if we had more services, not less. So it's weird to think that this is, you know, the business office is coming in and not asking for their part. Actually, I think it makes sense. So now, does anybody want to know more about that? Any questions?
What's your bad?
$405,000. And housing and dining pays 1.6 million. And parking and the bookstore pays some amount. And it's all kind of based on the same thing, you know, what services they're getting so that they don't have to have their own travel desk and accounts payable and contract stuff. And I can send you the Excel sheets. And I literally have 40,000 rows of every voucher that was paid from accounts payable. And we had to go through and write the code and figure out what would be for like 48. Yeah, I don't think that we would contemplate any change in the next 4 years.
Oh, yeah, so I guess I'll pass this now, I guess. What happens if we don't fund it? No, I don't care.
You know, I'm not sure. I know for sure for the bond payment, because the board of trustees actually signed a set of legal document purchase sale agreement this big, signed by the chair of the board of trustees saying, I'm binding all future trustees to this. And if we didn't pay it, we'd get sued. That would be bad. I know for sure that one's a no-go. I don't know, this one, I would assume then would go to dispute resolution. And that's. All of that's drawn out in the RCWs, that process. It's in your bylaws, what are they called? Guidelines, bylaws. I mean, there is a process for it. I don't know what the outcome.
So if we were to cut funding, it would cut into like staff.
Yeah. Yeah, the staff costs are. In those areas, something like 90 cents on the dollar. Yeah. So there, I don't see that there would be any way to take 400,000 out of those areas that impacting staff.
You like that. Human resources, payroll. To look against it. All those,
Yeah, so the cashier's office, some of the stuff you can't see is the information technology. Like some of it is making sure that all the computers have Office and well, Microsoft Office and they work. Then there's the PeopleSoft stuff. And it's, I don't remember what percentage it's getting. Yeah. 2.4% of the IT stuff at Central is benefit.
Decimal places on this percent.
That's an accountant joke. Accountant jokes aren't very funny. That's how you can tell when one happens. Aaron and I have to work on this crazy pension care every summer. And it's impossible to get it right. And in all the tables, they make us go out 9 decimal points, which I think is ridiculous. So I put 9 decimal points in here just to
Be funny.
kind of like engineer joke, you know, you gotta have the right crowd. And,
Got built on.
yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Anybody have any other questions?
Okay. Well, if you come up with any, send them off. Just like to anyone else.
You emailed me that,
So I can't wait.
the whole thing, when you get back,
Oh, when I get back.
yes. So I'll put this out in your all's teams folder, so if you wanna, get to it, and then, all of the other spreadsheets to go with that summary page.
Can only imagine what it was like when that news article dropped.
They had day-long meetings in this room between the committee and the administration when they were putting all this in. And I wasn't on the committee or were in that part of the administration back then, but I can remember it was an unnecessary distraction. You know what I mean? And if we were gonna get transfer the S&A committee, it would be better if it was, look at the wonderful programs they're offering to the students.
So it looks like that's all of our new business. On to the old business is deliberating on the supplemental funding request for the Museum of Culture and Environment. The value they had 12,000 requested. So I guess we can go into discussion of that, right? I don't know if I'm doing it right.
I don't believe you mean quorum.
Oh, that's a good point.
Eli had to leave, so that makes Ian chair now. Now we only have 2 voting members. Are we able?
Yeah, I had sent a message. We can't do anything with it. We have to table it until we have quorum.
We have a motion to table it until next meeting.
Biggest. Can we push this table about meeting?
Can we motion?
Oh,
automatic
Or do we just have to table it?
I think we have to table it. I don't even think there has to be a motion because we can't meet quorum. So there is no motion to table. We have to table.
So So by default, that's hold this the table till the next meeting. Next we have our second call for public comment. Do we have any? Nothing heard, so is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Actually, I don't know if it could, that's just by default.
Join the meeting.
Okay, all right, meeting at 2:59 PM.
Awesome, thank you.
So,
Thank you, Robbie.
for all you guys' books, if anybody really wanted to take that thing home, you're welcome to just make sure